about a product like this. In fact, I haven't been this excited about a product like this since I had my HF8 haptic seat pad and of course my DOF Reality H3 motion simulator. And this, well, it's exciting, trust me, because the realism when you're flying is just amazing, really. Hey everybody, welcome to the Sim Hangar. My name's Mark, and in this video we're going to be talking and taking a look at a force feedback yoke, something we don't see too much of in the flight sim world at the moment, certainly not in the price range that this product is offered at. Yes, we've got Simtronic and Brunner, etc., but they tend to be fairly expensive. We can just take a quick look here. So we've got, let's have a look here. Brunner, you're looking at 1,249 euros up to pretty close to 2,000 euros. I've never tried a Brunner, I must be honest, so I can't draw a comparison, unfortunately, and I think Simtronic are very much in the same sort of price range. But the product that we're looking at today is from a new company. It's based in Singapore. This is a pre-production sample. It should be out on the market soon. I think it's going to be part and parcel of a Kickstarter to help fund the production. The initial production run, I think, is being funded by the developers directly, and I think in May or June it should be available for sale, perhaps a bit sooner. I'll leave a link to this website in the notes below, so if you want to keep tabs you can do so. Flightsim.com is the company, and it's the CLS60 that I've got in front of me here, all metal construction. Later on at the back end of the video we'll be taking a look at the construction and some of the other details and what you get with it and so on and so forth. But really what's interesting here are the technical specifications. You get a pitch force of 60 Newton meters, which is the amount of force required and feedback that you get, which is considerable and higher than most. And also in terms of the roll force, you get 4 Newton meters, which is probably just under 50% more than what you would get on something like the Brunner, for example. And perhaps the one point that really caught my interest was the fact that the amount of travel that you get here, 165 millimeters. Again, that is pretty much exactly what you get on something like a Cessna 172, something like that. Wouldn't be far off that. And in fact, the yoke itself and the styling of the handle and so on is modeled very much on that of a typical type Cessna and so on. Now the one thing that never gets old is the switching it on and allowing it to do its self-calibration. So let's do that. So I've now switched it on. Here we go. How cool is that? Hello! Oh, there we go. It's done a self-calibration. The software isn't activated yet, but it's just recalibrated itself, got itself ready to go. So some of the other technical specifications you can find on their website, but the pitch travel at 165, you've got 90-degree roll in either direction, so 180 degrees worth of travel overall and so on. But the best way to explain this really is to show it to you. So let's just hide that. There we go. I suppose the one thing, having talked about Brunner and talked about the pricing, is just how much is this going to be? Well, that's again still subject to confirmation, but I think the price is going to be 799 US. Now that may sound a lot, but in the terms of force feedback yokes and all the capability that this can do Well, it's very competitively priced in the market. And rather than me try and explain everything to you, the best way is simply to show it to you. Now, the installation and the software, it's one piece of software. Let's just bring that up. There we have it there. So once you've switched on your yoke and it's done its initial calibration, we can just simply connect the software. There we go. Device connected, pitch no fault, roll no fault, system no fault. It does a complete check and analysis itself, and we can just test the movement along the currently defined axis. There we are. Now, the one thing you will notice is this is completely different to 99.9% of the yokes that you've tried. This is not just push it in against a spring. There's no springs in here. This is all electric motors, belts, and so on. But you've really got to push. I mean, there's real force there. Lovely dampening effect, just like in a real yoke. And on the roll is where I notice it the most. Oh, it's unbelievable. There's a real force required there. You know, most yokes you can just turn with one finger. This one, well, a little bit more is required. Okay, so we have now connected it, and we now need to tell it what software we're using. It can be X-Plane. It's fully implemented for X-Plane at the moment. Microsoft Flight Simulator. One of the reasons for the delay is simply I've been waiting for the software to be more usable, more of the effects to come into account, which the developer has been working on. I've been pushing him for that, and I really appreciate the priority that he's given it. And also it's compatible with Prepared. So let's choose Microsoft Flight Simulator and let's connect. Now, when we connect, this is what's going to be really interesting. So just take a look at the elevators here. You can see them moving here. So even though the force feedback functions are not connected to the sim right now, I'm about to connect all the telemetry and what have you. Pay attention. This is where in the sim you would normally see your elevators. Let's pop in now, and then let's connect. Flight sim connected. I can then go to effects, and I can enable the effects, and we'll talk a little bit more about the various effects as we go through. But in principle, you've got the yoke physics, ground vibration, turbulence, and stall warning, and basically you can tweak things to your heart's content, really, and get this to operate and give you what sort of feedback you want within those parameters. But let's enable now, and let's just keep an eye on the yoke, both physically and the one that is in the sim. Okay. Two things just happened, and I hope that that picks up. It's always hard in a video to show haptic feedback, but there's a shake now. This is shaking because of the engine vibration. And did you notice that the yoke fell forward? Now that happens in a real Cessna, something like that. Let's just take a quick outside look. Do you see how those elevators have fallen down? But that actually happens in a real aircraft. Now, not all aircraft, but it does happen on a Cessna, for example. So we can just hide this for now. I just want to, let me just go here, default profile 1. We're going to start off with the default profile. It's quite a generic profile. It's quite a soft profile. Things are not extreme, and very much suited to perhaps a more realistic flying experience. But if you wanted to enhance various features, that's where you can change all the different various parameters that are available, but we'll cover that at a later stage. Okay, so a couple of things that I want to show you that I really love, and again, very realistic. I've configured obviously my roll and my pitch access. I've also configured, there's a button here, we'll go through how many buttons and switches towards the end of the video. My trim is on this switch here. Now watch what happens both in the sim and physically on the yoke here when I start to trim. Do you see the yoke going in? Now I'm trimming out and the yoke's coming out. And if you look at the, you can see I'm trimming all the way down. That's all the way down now. Now trimming, the yoke's going back in. I'm not pushing this, guys. This is happening automatically. And again, that's how trim works typically on something like a Cessna and so on. So straight away you're impressed with the realism, and it really does help the immersion. You really start getting excited about a product like this. In fact, I haven't been this excited about a product like this since I had my HF8 haptic seat pad and of course my DOF Reality H3 motion simulator. And this, well, it's exciting, trust me, because the realism when you're flying is just amazing, really. And I'm trying not to laugh and to smile too much, but I just can't help it because that's the sensation that this product gives me. Anyway, so, and it's not perfect. We'll come to some of the issues or points that are negatives perhaps to some people a bit later on. But what's important is we see what we can and can't do. I've got another camera filming here, as you can see, and hopefully I'll be able to use some of that footage to show you the vibration that's happening. Okay, so the other thing I want to show you is I'm going to increase my throttle now and watch what happens to the yoke, because the prop wash, as the prop speeds up, so it creates a bigger wind force back on the aircraft. It's pushing air back, and that will raise the elevators. So let's advance the throttle. Come on, don't tell me you don't love that. Let's push it back down again. And it goes in. We can take an external view. See that tail lift? Those elevators coming up a little bit, and I can now pull those elevators up. Look at that. Kill it again. Come on. Yeah. Anyway, concentrate. It doesn't come pre-configured for Microsoft Flight Simulator in the sim itself. You have to do all the configurations and what have you, and I found I actually had to go and pick this axis and that axis rather than just move the axis to configure it. That may change, but you know, there's only, you know, I've got autopilot, I've got my trim, I've got push to talk here, I've got my recenter view, and I've got quick views set up and so on, and I've this switch here, or this hat switch or POV button also acts as a button as well if you press it in, and I've set up external views and so on. If you're wondering, we're at Outskerries, one of the handcrafted airports by default in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Okay, so time to get things moving, and let's see. But straight away, the feeling that you get, look at that travel. I mean, that's just incredible. Let's just have a look here at the yoke. You want to have a look at this, guys. Look at this. no snap. And of course you can change this and configure this to be more accurate if you want to. This is just default. It's taking quite a pressure. I don't know if you can hear it, but my rig is actually creaking slightly because of the pressure that I've got to put on it. I love the dampening effect. Okay, so what we're going to do, remember everything's at default at the moment. We're just going to take off. I'm going to give you my impressions and what have you, and we'll see how we go. Now I am taking off a little bit uphill. Our wind is more or less directly towards us, so brakes on. Let's increase the throttle. In fact, what I'm going to do, just change my view, get it down a little bit so we can see what's happening. I don't know if you can see this. Look at this reacting here. That's amazing. I'm running out of runway. Whoop. Watch those pylons. Gear up. Now, one of the things that you will notice straight away is the amount of force that you require. It's very, very different to a normal yoke. I'm now trimming, and the one thing I've noticed, you know, in the sim, if anything is, there's nothing really more unrealistic in Microsoft Flight Simulator, I don't think, than the trim. It just doesn't work, and in most sims, to be honest, the trim is far too sensitive. What I find here is this trim wheel works actually quite well. So we've just taken off from Outscaries. Now one thing you notice is we increased the RPM and the amount of vibration, it's still there. You probably can't see it, but it's still there. I can feel it, but it's nowhere near as dramatic as it is with the engine just ticking over, which is exactly what you would expect to see and feel. We're just going to do a quick circuit, just letting the speed build up now, and let's give a stall a try. This is, I mean, the pressure and it's just amazing. We're a little bit low. We by that, yeah, heading towards the lighthouse, just over the runway actually. There it is over there. So let's try a stall. A power on stall. I'm just going to lift my nose. 15, 20, 30. Let's just hold her there. Look at the vibration. Unbelievable. Hey! Whoops. That was amazing. The feedback that you get, just incredible. And the amount of force required in the yoke varies depending on the speed that you're doing and your attitude. It says it's a contact loading system, and that's exactly what it is. So I'm now speeding up, put my nose down, and there's quite a lot of force. There's increased wind against the various surfaces of the aircraft, and it's requiring a little bit more pressure in order to manipulate. Getting my nose way up. I am flying this a little bit like I stole it, so apologies for that. But get a yoke like this, you can't help it. Okay, let's just turn back towards Outskerries now, and we'll try and come in for a landing. Oof. The other thing is you can really feel the rudder when you're yawing. You can, the pressure that you require, that's a lot easier. That's a lot more difficult at the moment. Now, I'm no expert and I don't have experience with force feedback yokes. I did have a force feedback a flight stick or joystick. Do you know, I think it was made by Microsoft, but I can't quite remember, to be honest. But I've never tried a force feedback yoke, so I don't have any preconceptions. All I can do, flaps 1, come back on the throttle, flaps 2. Let's see what she's like in a landing. She's getting slower now. I can feel that vibration more, and she's heavy, very heavy. Oh, very nice. Oh, look at that. Can you see the brake, 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 brake? You see the brake? Stop! I can't stop. Can I cheat? Yeah, I had to turn at the end there, but hey, we live to fight another day. Let's just turn round. What an experience. If you're looking for immersion, look, I have flown in the past, in the real world, but that was 20-25 years ago. How realistic it is, I think it's fairly realistic, but I don't really know. But what I can tell you is, in terms of my simulation experience, it's fantastic. So let's now change things up a little bit here, and the first thing we will do is we will bring back the menu or the configurator. I hope you guys can see this, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to custom. You can create your own profiles, which I've done. Not actually for the Cessna, this is actually for A2A's Comanche 250, and it's a little bit aggressive, but right, I've got that one, and now I need to apply it. Okay, so what's happened is we've got ground vibration. Minimum force I think was 5 and maximum was 15. I've turned it up to 30 and 60. I've got the ground in between even and uneven, because you can get a different feel if you turn those forces up. I've also increased the turbulence factor to 30, 90 and 70, and velocity 10, for example. So I've turned up a number of these parameters. So now what we can do, let's go to the weather. Let's facing east. Let's increase the speed to, let's say, 6 or thereabouts, and gusts, we can get gusts up to about 8 or so, just to highlight. So, and I know that it's only the mean ground level, but it does carry on up in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So we've done that. Now let's try it with the forces turned up. Let's see what sort of impact we get. Now immediately I can feel the ground roll significantly more. Wow, this is quite difficult. Come on, girl, get up, get up. Oh, I don't know if we're gonna stall or not. Should have got my flaps up. Oh, I can feel that. Let's just get up a little bit. Get a little bit of height going. But I think you can see what's happening as the wind. Look how it's pushing this yoke. I'm going to just trim up, otherwise I'm going to end up in the drink. And you can see what's happening. It is a bit extreme, admittedly. Probably not too realistic because I've overemphasized some of the parameters. Now where we should feel it is when we start to turn, but you can see how it's kicking the yoke in the opposite direction to the gusts, which is exactly what you would expect to happen. So I'm going to come back a little bit on the throttle now. Okay, I may have been a little bit too aggressive on those. I can't hold it, I need two hands. Come on! Oh my goodness, how am I going to land this? Well, we'll pretend this landing didn't happen. Perhaps. Oh, speed bleeding off too quickly. Very short runway. Power's off. Oh! And the ground roll is brake, 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 brake! Stop! 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 Ooh, my goodness me! Woo. You don't get much closer than that, do you? This is a pre-production example. They do hope to start shipping, I think, sometime in May or late June, probably. I think they're going to fund something like the first 100 or 200 units. The developers are going to fund those, and then they're going to be launching a Kickstarter. I don't know the details of that Kickstarter at this time, and that is to fund not the development. I think the development has been done, but they're going to fund they need that funds to pay for the production and what have you, depending on demand, of course, and so on. But what a great experience, and I'm not aware of any other company that can give you a product like this at this sort of price point. Now, of course, it's $799, 800 US, so that's going to be, I don't know, about £700. It's probably going to be £100 shipping cost, something like that. There may be duties on top of that, but if that's the case, it would probably apply to products like the Brunner, and so on. So, and I'm not sure what the duty would be on something like this. It would probably be something in the region of 5 to 8%, but don't hold me to that. Just my estimate at this time. When they sent me this product, I did have to pay duty. It was about £82 or thereabouts. Okay, so now we're just going to pop in and have a look at some of the details and what have you. So I'll see you in a minute. For the purposes of transparency, please note that FlightSimCom provide the unit to me for the purposes of review at no charge, but have had no influence on my comments and opinions expressed in this video. The unit, including the yoke itself, is made of all-metal construction. Not sure what the metal is, I think it's a steel alloy of some kind. The styling of the yoke itself is based on the Cessna 172. It can be simply unscrewed and replaced, and I believe there are plans to bring in a Beechcraft-style yoke handle at some point in the future. It comes with 3 metal buttons with plastic tops, a plastic toggle switch which is ideal for trim, and on the right-hand side it has an 8-way POV. The construction of the switches itself seem fairly robust. I particularly like the trim switch, but I did find the 8-way POV button very sensitive indeed, yet functional. The all-metal and sturdy construction comes at a compromise of 9 kgs in weight, so it's a fairly hefty beast. With the unit you get a power supply, My unit had an Australian or US based plug point. I had to use an adapter, and with your unit you'll only get one USB-C into the unit and a standard USB-A on the other side. I had mine plugged into a powered hub and it operated no problems at all. The second USB that came with my unit is no longer required. It comes with an emergency stop-start button. This is how you switch the product on and off. Perfectly functional but fairly large, and I'd have preferred it to have been built into the unit itself. This is where you plug in your USB, your emergency stop, and your power supply. I asked the developer to send me some pictures of the internals, which he has kindly done so, and it looks sturdily built, units clamped firmly in place. From what I can see, it uses a dual drive system, the pitch is being driven directly by electric motor, and the roll force also by electric motor but via a drive belt. The whole unit appears to be fairly modular in construction, which has its advantages in terms of fault finding, repairs, etc. As with most force feedback yokes, it is fairly large. This is larger than most in my opinion, with the most significant factor being the height of the unit at 16.4 centimeters. It's relatively long as well, so it could present some mounting challenges. I mounted mine on my Next Level Racing flight sim rig using 2 G-clamps. You could also do this if you were using a desk. It has a further 2 mounting lugs at the rear. Weight is also a consideration, coming in just over 9 kgs. So there's no getting away from it, it is a big unit and that needs to be borne in mind. When the CLS60 is on, it's not particularly noisy. There is a slight hum from the unit, probably something equivalent to, say, a fan running in a PC, but once you're flying, well, you just don't notice it. As mentioned earlier in the video, I'll leave a link to flightsim.com's website. There you'll be able to check on details for the Kickstarter and get all the technical details you require regarding the CLS60. I'm pleased to say that they will be at FS Expo exhibiting their product. There are other videos on YouTube from experienced pilots giving you their own personal view. Just search for the CLS60 from flightsim.com. Interestingly, they've also got plans to introduce an even stronger motor at some point in the future, which would upgrade the CLS60 to the CLS120. I might need a bit of weightlifting to do that one. And the product arrived very suitably packed indeed. Well, that wraps up my review of the CLS60 Force Feedback Yoke from flightsim.com, and it certainly delivered on my expectations and in many ways exceeded them. It's got some disadvantages, perhaps in terms of size and weight, but overall, well, it was just a fantastic experience. If we were, for example, to do a comparison to the Brunner product, I've selected the smallest, the CLS-ENG. This comes in at 6 kg compared to the 9 kg we're looking at here. From a dimensions point of view, well, it's 6 centimeters lower in terms of height of the unit. The bodies of both units are made out of metal, and there's certainly more finesse to the finish for the Brunner unit. But you do need to bear in mind you're looking at something in the region of $1,300 US for the unit, and flightsim.com CLS60 is some $500 US less than that. On screen we're currently looking at the various parameters that can be adjusted for the force feedback yoke. And one thing I did want to mention for any of you cockpit builders out there, it does feature yoke synchronization, which means you could use 2 of the yokes and they'd work together in synchronization, just like in a real cockpit. Is it value for money? Well, that's only a decision that you can make. For $799, compared to the competition, it appears to be value for money. Bear in mind, I've never tried a Brunner or a Simtronic product, so to draw a comparison, I'm just not able to do that, unfortunately, but very happy with the CLS60, and it's now my yoke of choice. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go and figure out how I'm going to mount this on my DOF H3 motion platform. Well, I hope you found it useful and informative. Stay well, look after yourself, see you again soon, and ciao for now.